Hello wonderful world, and welcome back to another video where I'm going to share my thoughts about a motorcycle. In other words, it's a motorcycle review. The motorcycle in question is the Benelli TRK 502. So shall we begin with looking at it from an aesthetic point of view. Here's a little photo shoot I did of my 502X. In due course, I will share with you my thoughts, both positive and negative, of this bike, and of course at the end I'll give you a specification sheet for those of you like me who like to know the nitty-gritty. But overall, I won't be coming in front of the camera. I think the best way to review a bike is by sitting on the bike and riding the bike and telling you how I feel. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's begin. So the Benelli is a mid-size adventure touring motorcycle. It's got very popular in the last few years because of its price point. Priced way below any other adventure bike, but then again, it is 500cc and most adventure bikes offer a larger displacement. Generally, one of its main positive points is its price. Second positive point is its versatility. It handles really well both road and off-road. Not severe off-road, but fairly easy off-road. Aesthetically, it's a modern looking bike with LEDs and a digital instrument cluster. That helps because one never thinks that the money that one has spent on this bike means you've got a cheap bike. It actually does look expensive and it feels expensive, but it isn't so expensive. It has a 20-litre tank, which is very generous, and it feels very comfortable on long distance travel. In fact, its comfort is one of the main features, I would say, as its main plus point. Again, fuel efficiency is very good. If you throttle hard, then you will get quite easily 300 kilometers out of the tank. And if you're like me and you softly, gently massage the throttle, you can get a lot more. When riding this bike, you feel that you're not on a 500cc. Now, some people don't care if it's 500 or not, but some do and think it's a small adventure bike. When you ride it, you certainly don't feel that, especially when it's pulling like a train with power. And remember, this does weigh just in excess of 235 kilograms. Not a small weight for a 500cc, yet it doesn't show that. It doesn't show that it's struggling with heavy weights. I think to share the positives without the negatives is a very poor review. So I'm going to share some of the negatives, and there are a fair few. Doesn't discount the fact that this is a good bike. That I want to put in at the very outset. As I just mentioned, it is a heavy bike. It's 235 kilograms, though it maneuvers pretty well on the open road. In tight spaces, it's very difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. And the other negative, I guess, with regards to its weight, is it's top heavy. It doesn't have a good center of gravity. Most bikes, most adventure bikes, have weight down below, which makes them feel a little lighter. This, when it's moving, has no problem, but when you're going at slow paces, you do feel the weight. The build quality is pretty good for its price point, but it doesn't compete with the Japanese bikes that it might be pitted against. Quality of Japanese bikes I've ridden is far higher than this bike, but then again, as I said, this is often half or even a third of the price of a new Japanese bike, so one has to balance the scales. Two things I have felt are negatives is the lack of dealers and the lack of aftermarket parts. Now, a lot of people understand that motorcycles don't often get into serious trouble where one needs major parts, but sometimes it's nice to have that feeling that you have a dealership close by and you can get the parts both through the dealership and outside the dealership. In this case, not so easily. However, I would say there is a forum called AliExpress and they do sell a lot of TRK stuff directly from China. So don't despair. There is a solution. A little harder than a local dealer, but it's still a solution. For me, this has never been an issue, but for some people who know about the background of Benelli, know Benelli is actually a Chinese motorcycle company. It has Italian design for sure, but QJ, which is its mother company, is its owner. Now, that's not to say that it is lacking in quality. I do believe that Chinese motorbikes have moved up leaps and bounds, and they're not as bad as they used to be. This Benelli certainly proves that point. But for some people, that is an issue, that it has a Chinese element to it, and they're put off that. Well, all I'd say to them is, you buy Japanese, pay twice or three times as much, and be happy. Now for what I feel when I ride this bike. It's a fantastic bike. I personally feel I'm not riding a 500cc. I've also done a review, which I haven't put out there yet, of the Honda CB500X, and there is a difference. The 500X is lighter, it feels more nippy, but it does feel like a starter bike. This, however, is not as nippy, much more heavier, and you feel like you're on a veteran's bike. Something that's been tried and tested, both I mean in terms of bike and the rider, and they have a synergy together. That's not to knock the Honda CB500X. I do believe that is also a fantastic bike, but on long distances I would certainly take this over the CB500X. This video's backdrop just proves one thing. Currently I'm riding through the Karakorum highway, through the Karakorum range, and some people think that some of these bikes aren't good for long distance. Well, this has proved them wrong. It's tough terrain, some serious inclines, lots of pothole roads, a little bit of off-roading, which I haven't really put in this video, but I never once felt that this bike would let me down, and it didn't. So all I would say to people is, if you are limited by budget, this probably is the best adventure bike you could afford. If budget is not an issue, there are alternatives that will pip this at the post. Will win maybe by an inch, maybe by a foot, and I think some even by a mile. But budget often is a major factor. So this bike is here to stay, and it's here to stay for the long duration. Just a little caveat, in terms of the specification, they may change per region, per year of manufacture, per country. Sincere apologies if I'm slightly out with your bike. Anyway guys, time for me to go. I bid you farewell. For those on two wheels, please ride safely.